Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
I've always wanted to be a game show host. I think I could manipulate my voice in a way, is it a 7? Like that wasn't real. I could bring it more than that, but we play a game at Faith and it's called Is It a 7? And I like to do it during film. And I take 5 or 6 shots and from all types of players. And right when it releases their hand, it's a foot away, I pause it and we play Is It a 7? And guys raise their hand, 7 being a wide open jump shot within their range. PGC shooting scale, I've used it for years. I told coaches it's the single greatest thing next to flow that I've added. But really, and I want to go back to another thing you said in a second, but we have them rate that shot. And the fun thing is you got to really teach the difference between a 6 and a 7 and how those lines can blur. And how the faster preparation and the faster you train, the more that you're allowed to technically take 6s. And we want to have the trained eye. To the untrained eye, those are contested jump shots. But to the trained eye, and you teach your players this, and I teach myself this, to where I don't get frustrated with what appears to be a 6, because if I actually pause it, the ball's out of his hand at the time that the hand gets in his vision. So he could punch me in the face at that point. The shot's done. It's over. So faster preparation and not just more makes, but you demonstrate that you can take those and you're willing. And over time, the percentages says that you make it, even though I just said something I don't really value as percentage, but if they can do that, and in our shooting games, it does show over time, I'm okay with it. So we played that, and it's amazing how I'll take the clips that it's for sure a 7, and they miss at the end, and we have to teach each other that it's a great possession. The goal of the possession isn't to score. The goal of possession is to get the best shot as fast as possible. And fellas, you know what the best shot is, so we're going to stand for every 7 that we take. Not just makes, that's not special. We're going to celebrate to where people will leave the gym, go, what is up with them? They were happy about every miss. Well, we were happy about the makes too. But coach, the 2 things, and this is, I don't know where I got this from, but maybe it's just having enough of these talks over the years where culture comes up a ton, and I'm all for great words. I'm all for if you have posters, if you have things on shirts, that's fine. But your culture is tested and you find out really what it is, how you deal with shot selection and how you deal with losing games. Those 2 things tell me really what your culture is, not what just your slogan is or your breakout is or your hashtag is on social media. I don't give a crap about that. How do you deal with your best shooter or a guy that's allowed to shoot open shots missing in a timeout? Do you say, guys, if you make more shots, we'll be fine? Well, no crap like that. Anytime I hear somebody say that, I'd almost just want to be like, playing coach, like not really coaching, playing coach. I've played coach before. And I think, but then how you do with losing, and Tyler helped me with that years ago by eliminating post-game talks. But how you deal with those 2 things, coach, that's your culture, in my opinion.
Yeah, man, you said so many good things. I took like a page of notes as you were writing. So I want to go over a couple of things because we're speaking the same language, which is great. So we did the same thing with film. Like, is it a 7? We had our players rate the shot, right, according to the shot scale. And I would actually pause it before it hit the rim. That way they couldn't be. So you're doing it right on the release. I went a little bit longer just so they got a look, same thing though. And the first time we did it, the players were like waiting on we didn't see if it went in or not. I'm like, that's not the point, So, and then you said trained eye, and we say the same thing. We talk about like, what lens are we looking through? I love the film, and I have a cut up where it pauses and all that. So if any coach wants the film that I use, they want to use it with their team, reach out, I'll send it to you. The goal is really, there's going to be some gray area. You said between a 6 or a 7, right? As long as we all agree on what a 6 is, what a 7 is, we get questions on the shot scale because we use the same one and we've adapted it a little bit. But I would say whatever makes sense to you as the coach, feel free to tweak it. Common sense should prevail. And during practice, we would play a lot of different games as far as like, if you take a 9 or a 7, you get to keep it, right? Whether you make it or not. So we're not attached to the outcome that way, but also just measuring those things throughout practice. If you find your team taking suspect so-so shots, just stop and say, hey guys, on a scale of 1 thumbs down, 2 thumbs to the side, 3 thumbs up, what would we say about our shot selection? And if you don't have consensus, that means it's not clear, right? Or, hey, is it a 7? That's my game show voice. How am I doing? Is that okay?
Good.
Okay, I'll work on it.
Maybe about in voice, no doubt.
Maybe we'll have our game show voice down. So let's say you take a shot, and I say, is it a 7? And half the team says yes, some are undecided, some say no, doesn't matter. Even if 80% say yes, some are saying no, we don't have consensus, which means it may not have been a 7, right? Or those few players, I would say, okay, well, what defines a 7? What are some characteristics of a 7? And maybe their definition is off, right? And that is a way where we can just continue to shape our lens. That way we don't roll into the game and then we're the coach in the timeout or at halftime and we're not, we're taking terrible shots. It's like, well, maybe your team doesn't know what a great shot is first. So much of coaching, like, okay, I love the fact that you said playing coach. I've never heard that before, but been there, done that. I've observed it many times. Playing coach is something goes wrong, in this case, shot selection. It could be our body language. It could be the way a player gets coached at practice or during a game. And we get upset and we yell and scream because we just assume they know what the standard is or what the right way to do something is. But if we've never set that standard before, you're playing coach. You're showing up for the game, expecting everything to go great. When it doesn't, we have no plan. We haven't equipped our players to handle that adversity. So yeah, just intentionality, I think, is the difference between coaching and playing coach. I'm going to steal the phrase playing coach. Thank you.
I stole it or borrowed it, and I'm drawing a blank on who, and that happens quite a bit with these talks. They blur together, but thankfully some of the things jump out. But years ago, we all have our playing coach moments, and you're right on the money. I think if you're having to address something as serious as shot selection in the moment, then the answer is time machine. You go back to day one. Shot selection's day one at Grapevine Faith Christian School before quote unquote culture. But that's where the definition of culture has to shift. It's not these words that you say. It's everything that you do. It's how you literally show up every day. It's how you train. It's how you talk. It's how your locker room is. It's how shot selection is. It's all of these things together, and it's done by thousands of little conversations. And one of my favorite parts from Ted Lasso, 3rd season, I think season 1's the best. 2, they start declining, and then 3 is just awful until Total Football comes back around and they completely redeem themselves, because I think that's what we're talking about here is total basketball. But the reporter, Trent, who has just been kind of getting on board, he says, this is going to work. And Ted Lasso's like, why do you say that? He's like, because of the Ted Lasso effect. He says, all the thousands of little conversations you've had over the last few years. And that's what culture is. It's not, I love activities. IUE talks that I took from PGC is some of our strongest moments, maybe to reshape, refocus, or just catapult it even farther. It does that, but it's not a standalone. And I just completely lost it. But that whole playing coach. So years ago, I used to say, that's not it. That's not it. Again and again, in the middle of the game, yelling, that's not it. What am I saying that for? Am I just trying to tell my players that they're really not doing that? Or am I telling the parents that that's not how I coach them, so don't get mad at me when it doesn't work out? completely just playing coach. And thankfully, I had a player that had the courage. And I think something you said years ago of what questions I should ask them after the season is over. Shawnee Harley challenged me with another question of how can I be better for you? She also said, what's something I should ask players? What's something that I say to you that you don't want me to say anymore? Oof. Like, you got better have some courage as a coach to ask that question. But a kid came up to me and said, Coach, I really don't like when you yell, that's not it. And, I mean, I didn't even think about it, but it's one of those block out. Oh, wow. Well, okay. If that's the first time you're talking about blockouts, then you're in trouble already. Nothing you say will matter. Same thing with culture breakers happening in games. But yeah, playing coach, that's a goal of mine, is to not do that.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I love that. I love that you mentioned Ted Lasso too. Completely agree on the seasons. I have heard season 4 is going to be a thing. I don't know if that's true.
If it's about Beard and him maybe growing in his Ted Lasso-ness, I'm on board. If it's the manager, that weird deal. The manager becomes the head coach, and then he comes back like.
Then he's the villain, and then
like, man, what a shift! I remember watching my wife going like, "Why is he so angry? This dude take him from a water boy to like he's listening to him. Like, where's the gratitude, man? Like, oh
yeah." I think the in the lesson there was how you make your players feel. You know, like they say, perception is reality. His perception was reality. So, like you saying, like that's not it. It's like, well, I might not even be talking to that player, right? It makes that other player feel really uncomfortable. So we shouldn't do it, right? Or we should adjust our approach, find a better way. I love that you got that from asking, what should I not say? Or how do you not want me to coach you? That's really, really good. I'll share my that's not it story. And this has to do with kind of our style of play shift, but I would have consistent one-on-one meetings with our players. But the big one was always at the end of the season, where they just felt a little bit more open, unleashed to share feedback. And there was this one player, his name was Chandler, and he was a talented player. We disagreed on some things, right? Chandler was a unique kid and pushed the he would never go over the line, but he liked to step on it a little bit. But nothing bad, just it was just one of those things where, like, you had the coach Chandler, and really high basketball IQ, really, really good kid, loved his family, and he gave me some great feedback at the end of the season. We're sitting in the coach's office. We're going through our Google Doc. I think you should send a Google Doc, Google form before you do any one-on-one meeting. Let them have time to think about their answers. You get their answers in advance. But his feedback to me was, Coach, I feel like we start the year playing really fast, shooting a lot of threes. We switch a lot of things defensively, and we usually start out really strong. And as the year goes on, I feel like we play slower, we shoot less threes, we make more defensive adjustments as the year, and I feel like we kind of lose our steam. And my initial response was like, I'm about to jump across this table. How dare this kid tell me how to be better at my job? I'm the coach, But for, 3 seconds, I just stood back and I just said, gosh, everything he's saying, I have felt myself, but I didn't emotionally attach, right? I didn't want to come to grips with it. So I just said, Chandler, I think you're kind of right. And I felt that too, but I haven't had the courage to really go all in. I welcome that feedback. Thank you. And that was honestly one of the big turning points in my coaching journey. I remember calling a friend and I was just like, man, next year we're switching everything. We're playing fast. We're shooting a lot of threes. And he was like, why? And I'm like, can you give me a good reason why not? Like you said, the goal is to create a great shot as fast as you can. Like, why would we not try to do that in transition? And why would we not hold to that as the season goes on, through the good, through the bad? If you're not holding on to your beliefs and your philosophy through good and bad, it is not your identity. Not to say you can't make adjustments. I think your principles of play, your philosophy should remain the same. The steps, the tweaks, the adjustments throughout the season is intentional coaching, but it should be to still get the end result. Your vision as the head coach, you might have to make adjustments along the way. A plane, when it's in the air, they say it's off track like 90% of the time. So the pilot's job is just to nudge it right back on track constantly. That is your job as the coach. You'll never cast this vision and you just like automatically get there. That wouldn't be fun either, right? Like Ted Lasso, right? He had this awesome vision, but a whole lot of adversity, and he had to come up with a suggestion box. He had to figure out how to coach his most difficult players and manage the roster and manage his coaching staff and all those things, what makes an expert coach. So think of it this way. You are the bumpers on the bowling alley, right? And you should expect things to go off course and expect to hit some adversity. A master coach can always should work to get it back down the middle of the alley.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.